All right, we'll call this meeting of the Station and Facilities Committee to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Thank you, Commissioner or Board member, committee members. Hughes,
Harris.
Vice Chair Craig Hensley. Here. Chair Zuber.
Here.
Thank you, we do have a quorum.
All right, next item is public comment. Do we have any online?
Seeing none online,
Any in the room? Seeing none, we will move on. Item 3, the consent calendar, which consists of the minutes for our last meeting. Any public comments?
seeing none online,
Any comments from committee members? If none, I'll entertain a motion. Second. Can we just do a voice thing? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, to adopt a resolution of the Station and Facilities Committee approving an agreement with Mark Thomas Incorporated for planned specification estimates for the Sacramento City College project. You're up.
Great, thank you. Still good morning. Good morning, members of the committee. This recommendation is to adopt a resolution to approve an agreement with Mark Thomas for PS&E or design services in a not to exceed amount of $3,420,730. 5-year contract duration with up to 2 one-year periods, additional periods. The City College Station is part of our Valley Rail North, and it's one of 6 stations north of Stockton, California, on the way to Sacramento. This station will help better connect our San Joaquin Valley travelers to Sacramento, and it is adjacent to the existing Sacramento Regional Transit light rail station at SAC RT light rail station. And the benefit of that is that the RT station already has parking and bus pickup and drop off for transit. There you go. Okay. All right. So the station is located in Sacramento near Sutterville Road, adjacent or right next to the City College. And it has a number of features. This project will have a number of features. And so if you look on the map, item number 1 is the at-grade side platform, side loading platform. And then number 2 is a track extension or new track for the ACE train and new crossover tracks to allow north-south trains to pass each other. Item number 3, which is a key to the station, is the cross-platform transfers to the light rail, providing that connection with the existing local transit. The contract provides for design services and specifically 100% design and construction specifications. It also provides for cost estimate updates at the 30, 60, and 100% design milestones so that we can stay updated on the project cost as it moves through design. And then also provides for potholing so that we can locate the utilities that we may find through the design investigations and through the design itself. And then that way we can understand where exactly they are and then either look for solutions to either protect in place or in some cases relocate it if necessary.
Can I ask a clarifying question on
Sure.
that? So we're getting items 1 through 5, not items task 31 through 16.
You're getting items 1 through 5, and then the task items 3-1 through 316 are subtasks to item number 3.
Okay.
So you're getting all of the items that are that's shown on the screen now.
Thank you.
And that will, I'll turn it over.
They still have a delay on the clicker, so.
Thank you.
It's not you.
So I will hand it over to Autumn to talk about the procurement approach.
Thank you, Christine. I do want to mention that, member Chiesa is online.
Thank
So much for the voice votes.
Yeah. Okay, so in November of '24, we released an RFP via Planet Bids, and we also sent out the notices to our regular stakeholders that directed them to Planet Bids for the RFP information. On the due date, we received 3 proposals. Whoops, see, now I did it too soon. Sorry. On the due date, we received 3 proposals: Mark Thomas and Company, Railpros Inc., and then Trans Systems. All proposals were deemed responsive and were evaluated by our panel of commission staff. So 2 firms of the 3 were invited for interviews, Mark Thomas and Railpros. Staff combined the scores from both the written and the interviews and determined that Mark Thomas is the top ranked proposer. The Rail Commission and Mark Thomas negotiated and agreed to an exact scope and price, and the agreement will be effective upon execution by both parties. And as Christine mentioned, it's a little over $3.4 million for 5 years with the 2-year options. I will add that design during construction is a service that they were scoped for, but it's not in this base contract. It'll be amended in when we get closer to construction. So this project is part of the Valley Rail program. It's in the PS&E phase, and the budget for this phase and this project is a little over $6 million. If approved today, the remaining budget would be about $2.5 million. So that's to allow for the additional services we'll need as we get closer to construction. With that, staff recommends approval of this agreement, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any public comment on the item?
Seeing none online.
Any questions, comments from the committee? Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Now, since we have a remote person, do we need to do roll call?
We will. I would also ask if we have any public comments in person.
The answer is no.
Committee members, Chiesa,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Vice Chair Craig Hensley. Aye. Chair Zuber.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
Here it is. All right, item 5. To adopt a resolution of the Station Facilities Committee approving an amendment 3 to the agreement with JMA Civil. Incorporate the plan specifications and estimates for the series of Turlock double track project. Who's handing that?
That will be our external consultant, Blake Loftus. He is being promoted to panelist now.
Good morning and happy Friday, committee. This item number 5 is to approve the amendment for JMA's final design contract on the series to Turlock double track project. In the amount of $257,814 for a new not to exceed amount of $4,101,463. Next slide, please. As background information, the series to Turlock project is to design and construct a second main line along UP's existing track from the Keys layover facility in the north down through Turlock into Stanislaus County in the south. And it's about 6 miles of new double track that'll be used for the future commuter rail. And the temporary layover facility at the Keys at the north will be moved down to the south to allow trains to lay over in the phased implementation of the program. Next slide, please. So the current scope of work is for plan specification and estimate through final design, including project management, surveying, design specifications and estimate, and then an optional task for design support during construction, similar to the item you just heard. On November 17th, 2023, the committee approved the original contract for $3,506,929 in a term of 2 years. Next slide, please. Since the implementation of the original contract, we've had amendment number 1 in August 2024, which was related to designing pier protection that was found to be necessary once the alignment from the new track was set and the proximity to existing bridge structures was determined. In October 2024, we executed amendment number 2 for additional potholing once the as-built and extent of existing utilities was determined. And this third scope has been negotiated over the last few months and would be for $257,814, as I mentioned. Next slide, please. So the scope of this amendment includes several items that have come up over the last few months, including extending the UPR right of entry permit as a result of UP's internal approval process taking longer than anticipated. It would be additional survey to integrate a ongoing project that Stanislaus County is implementing at Berkeley Golf into our current project design, as that will be the as-built condition when we start our project. Includes environmental permitting support now that the footprint of the project has been determined, including biological studies to supplement what was done in the EIR. And the design of additional pier protection at Golden State Overhead Crossing. As you can see in the picture, there's existing pier protection that was not anticipated to need to be modified, but in our last structural submittal, UP decided that they would like supplemental protection at the existing piers, and that was not included in the original scope of work. Next slide, please. And for the procurement approach, I will hand it off to Autumn.
Thank you. So this amendment was handled in accordance with the Rail Commission's procurement manual and will be effective upon execution by both parties and shall continue through November 17th, 2025, unless extended in writing. Procurement and contract staff have confirmed that the price is fair and reasonable and that additional services are necessary and reasonable. This project is also in Valley Rail in the capital budget line, part of the PS&E phase. It does have about 16.5 million in this project, this phase's budget. If approved today, this amendment, the budget remaining would be a little over 9.5 million. And staff recommends approval of this amendment, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
All right, anybody on the committee have any questions?
I just got questions / comment. We see this, I don't want to say fairly often, but somewhat regularly with UP coming along and saying, now we have to do this, notwithstanding original agreements. Are we going to be seeing, are we allowing for contingencies moving forward when we get into these construction? Because when we're getting this far into it, they may come back with safety standards, design standards, whatever it is that they want to meet their most current standards versus when we start a project, kind of like when you get your permit issued, you're working off the code in the permit at that point in time. But now, wherever it is, 2 years later, or whatever, we're having to meet new standards. So how do we anticipate for that? Because that's why some of these amendments are coming forward.
They are, and that is the difficulty that we have working mostly in a class 1 railroad corridor. When you have your own right of way, that can be, you know what your standards are, you know when you're going to change them, and you can anticipate that. We have started to put some contingencies in that they're generally you have this in construction, but we're doing this even on design, these sort of unforeseen things, which is why when Autumn showed you the funding chart on one of the last, there is a residual. And so we do hold that, and we do anticipate coming to you with change orders as those come up, because we don't want to front load them into these contracts. It's probably more cost effective to do it. In one case, we had a brand new standard that needed to be developed before we could move, and this is the platform image. And so this affects all the existing stations. We've been trying to expand in San Joaquin and Alameda County. They need to be longer. But UP said, we have been thinking about a new national standard for removable edge, but we don't have one yet. And so
We can get built before that?
no. So the team that was working on our platform expansion ended up helping to design that with UP, because if we didn't do it, we would still be sitting here. So it's tough in this environment. This is one of those things that comes up because it's not our right of way.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to put that out there.
Any other questions? Any public comment?
We have one question online from member Chiesa.
Yeah, on the survey work on that golf link, because I know that's supposed to be in construction here and at least by fall. Is it minor work down there, or is this major work?
It's fairly minor. What happened was the CAD files for the designer for Berkeley Golf, it's using a different datum. So it's basically some surveys so that we can tie in the CAD work from that project into ours more seamlessly. So it's just some supplemental survey around there to tie into their control points.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Do you have any public comment?
Seeing none online.
Any public comment here? There are no other questions or comments. I would entertain a motion.
Move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Thank you. Members Pieza,
Aye.
you,
Aye.
Vice Chair Craig Hensley,
Aye.
Chair Zuber.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Item 6 is to adopt a resolution of the Station Facilities Development Committee adopting the Elk Grove Station Elements of Distinction. Mr. Lepari.
Thank you very much. So you'll remember as we've gone through this design process, outlining, sort of our principles and the way in which we wanted to direct the individual design teams to design a Valley Rail station. One of the values that we put forward in that process was this idea that most of the station elements would be unified across the corridor. And really that was one, to make sure that when you arrived at a Valley Rail station that you understood where you were, right? It looked like the station you left from, like in most cases. And it also has some implications on design and construction, and then long-term maintainability, where we have like parts all throughout the corridor with the ability to maintain those in a more efficient manner. But as we discussed, as staff discussed this with the committee, you directed us to find some way to bring some of the city into the station without doing a large redesign of elements that were going to increase the cost of the stations. And so we started this process called the Elements of Distinction. You approved this process, and we've begun to roll this process out with some of the jurisdictions that oversee the stations in which we are designing. And today, we're happy to bring forward our first element of distinction from the city of Elk Grove and the Elk Grove station itself. And I'll walk you a little bit through the process that we went through, as well as then where we ended up, like at the end of that process. So this is the process sort of timeline that we laid out with the city. You'll notice that there's no dates on it because we weren't quite sure like how long it was going to take. But I will say that the coordination between staff, the design team, and the city staff was really excellent. They provided a lot of availability for meeting times. They gave really direct and understandable feedback to staff. And so as we were working through each level of this process, it really seemed like a seamless and collaborative environment, which we really appreciated as a staff. So we started there at the left-hand side on the top, where we just kind of outlaid, well, what are we talking about? Elements of distinction sounds like a very fancy word, but what does it really mean? And then at that point, the city gave us some very great feedback, things that really mattered to them about Elk Grove, what they were looking forward to in their city, and some ideas for themes. They gave us a few different ideas, from elks to cranes to just oak trees, and the team designed several different items for them. We presented those items. In the secondary meeting, they elected to choose the elk as their sort of like iconic item for their station. We went back and designed quite a few elks, and sort of accompanying backgrounds for them. They saw them, they chose one. We did slight adjustments to them as we were kind of coming to the final elements, and I have those to show you today. So when we're thinking about where is this theme going to go in the station area, we do have some pretty specific areas. So the first is the wind screens on the back of the platform canopies. That's an area where will be customized. The whole sort of structure of the platform is meant to be unified across the corridor. The windscreen itself is something that we will be modifying as a part of the element of distinction. There's also these stair towers, which have like walls that are somewhat flat faced. And so that's an area where we'll be adding some vinyl. You'll see an example of what the Elk Grove one will look like in a minute. And then in Elk Grove, a particular feature that we've been discussing sort of all throughout the process with the city is the back of the overcrossing looks into, if you will, like some neighbors that are very near the station area. And so as a part of the elements of the distinction process, producing something that would guard those standing on the walkway from just looking into the neighborhood. So you'll see examples of what that will look like as well. Really what it starts with is the icon. So what is it that they're choosing and how will that be represented? And that icon is sort of opened up to then fill those spaces that I just outlined. But that icon will not just be present in the station area, but will actually be utilized in our marketing and outreach materials as we discuss, well, where can you go, like in the system, as well as on communication materials, maybe even your ticket itself will have the icon of your e-boarding station, so you can sort of just look out the window until you see, right, that the icon present at the station. I will say I did this like when I was in Seattle for a meeting a couple of years ago. I looked on the map, I was like, oh, I'm at that station, and I just waited until I saw the picture, and I was like, I knew I arrived at the right area. So that the icon that starts the Elk Grove elements of distinction is this icon. So a very prominent elk. I think one of the things that was important to the city, also important to us, was that it had a very modern flair to it, because the city itself, or the station itself, is actually a very modern design. In addition to that, they didn't really want the elk to look like the other representations of elks in the city, and had a really distinct look. So because we are a very distinct project, the city's not building the station like we are, but we want to fit in, right, to the city. There's also some representations of grasses and cattails sort of in the background, which really call to the local wetlands, which are like on that side of Elk Grove. When you sort of think of, well, then what happens next? You sort of build out a set of assets that we can utilize in various ways for promotion, for signage, and even in ways in which we might think of in the future when we open the station. Well, we could utilize some of these elements in like giveaway materials like this, like, well, we can provide a tote bag or a water bottle or whatever we deem, you know, sort of the coolest thing to give away at the time when it's time to unveil the station. Then taking that, we sort of then give a treatment on the shelter windscreen. So here you see the elk very prominent in the middle of the shelter itself, and then introducing this element of the oak tree, like as it represents the city Elk Grove itself. Then sort of thinking right above, actually let me go back. So right above that graphic and those windscreens, there is actually a sign that sits on top that says the name of the city, and that sign looks like this. And then accompanying the side there, you see the one color version of the icon. Again, that was where I was giving that idea of like, well, you can just look out the window, right, and wait for your icon to show up on the signage itself. And there's quite a few of these, not just in the shelter, but actually in other areas like the mini high ramps like that, where ADA passengers access the train. They actually have a version of this, and so they have like an accompanying thing to look for as well. On the stair tower, we went with, this will be a vinyl wrap of the stair tower itself. As you sort of envision this is actually wrapped all the way around the stair tower itself. So you have the prominent elk here with the grasses and sort of those wavy lines. But then when you sort of see it in a flat view, this is what it would look like. Sort of the elks on either side, and then that prominent oak in the middle, where sort of like above the elevator tower like would be. And then for the privacy windscreen, we discussed this quite a bit actually, both with the city as well as with the design team, that the initial thought was, well, we will just put the elk on there, like, but then we thought, well, maybe if you're sitting in your backyard, you might not want to look at a giant elk staring down at you, but you do probably want some level of treatment that adds a little flavor. So what the passengers will experience is like a gradient of perforations within the panels themselves, which will allow some light into the walkway, as well as some air movement into that area. Though where the eye level is of the passenger, the gradient will be the smallest, right? So they can't sort of peer out, and then larger in areas where they won't be able to see. On the community side, we will use sort of a different process to provide these sort of wavy lines and grasses, which will give them some sort of visual interest, but not an overpowering image for them to stare at. So with that, I mean, there's no fiscal impact to this item, and we recommend that you approve these elements of distinction and their inclusion in sort of the design plans for the station itself. But happy to take any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Not a question, but David gave me the courtesy of showing this to me ahead of time, given this within the district I represent. And I especially like those little icon logos. I first encountered them Mexico City's public transit system. It makes it very easy, especially if you don't speak the language, to know that's the picture of the station I want to get off. But I'm gonna shake my fist at you a little bit. Can you go back to the slide of showing all the icons there?
Yeah.
So I saw on the side of the slide there, I saw a SeaTac stick out. So, oh, Seattle, okay. You know how long it took me to look and try and find the SeaTac? No. Try and find the SeaTac logo and that Sea of logos. They're two different systems.
Yeah. Well, I apologize. The one on the left is from Europe. I don't remember which country. And then the one on the right is from Seattle. Yeah, so I apologize. We were trying to give you multiple representations of how this is used throughout the world, you know?
Yeah, like one of those things where.
He's
if
like,
you want
why
to
is it-
exercise your-
I did it.
I couldn't find it.
I apologize.
Just
Thank you,
a
Chair.
question on maintenance.
Yeah.
On the wraps.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit, I mean, it's one thing on the screens, and even in that, I don't know, are these powder coated or, you know, how's maintenance dealt with over time on the wraps and the,
Yeah, so when we spec the wrap itself, it will come with sort of like an anti-graffiti coating on it, and it will have a life expectancy. And so for us as an agency, we will need to work that into our routine maintenance plan to routinely come and replace the wrap. But you know, with our experience, like on the trains themselves, like today, the wraps actually do last. The vinyl does last quite a long time, and especially in this like one color format where we're not like printing a picture of something, it'll even last like longer than that.
and the reason I ask is because I'm also, I love the design concept when we're dealing with concrete and basically the image is impressed into the concrete rather than using color. And so cost-wise, I'm never sure if there's a value. That seems to me to have less issues of maintenance because it's impressed into the concrete and set. And I know we see that on, the walls all over, when we're driving highways in different locations, you enter a community and they've done that. So I just suggest that sometimes is that it's really a more cost-effective way with some of the stations that may be larger. You have an option of a wrap or an option of impressing it into a concrete if you have a large expanse.
Yeah, so I think that there are examples like the Series station, which will have a tunnel with a concrete face where we could use sort of a treatment. And there's also like a wall that we're building underneath 99, which could also carry the theme like in kind of like in this way, but in relief. In these particular locations, these stair towers are metal faced panels. And so from, I think from a cost effectiveness perspective, it's cheaper for the commission to purchase the metal panels, like just paint it and then apply the wrap and then replace the wrap like on a routine basis than probably trying to find some other way to affix something probably to it.
I appreciate that. Nope, not a surprise. Elk,
Yeah. We were shocked as well.
Any other questions? Any public comment?
Seeing none online.
Any here? And I would entertain a motion on the item.
Happy to move the item.
Second?
All right, roll call, please.
Thank you, members Chiesa,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Vice Chair Craig Hensley,
Aye.
Chair Zuber.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
Item 7 is to adopt a resolution of the Station Facilities Committee amending chapter 15 of the Valley Rail Station Design Criteria. You're on.
Thank you. So we've gone through sort of an iterative process over time to define the principles for the station, some guidelines for the stations, and then you approved a very large criteria document that was provided to the design teams to really guide how to design a Valley Rail station. Within that document, we let you know at that time that there were certain components of that criteria that were still in development. So we wanted to release that document to the design teams to get going, but we needed time to work on a few of those elements. And one of those was chapter 15. So if you were to look at the sort of the old chapter 15, it did have some information, but it was sort of waiting for the signage manual process that that we just went through to really build it out and provide very specific direction to the design teams. And so back in January of 2024, the Rail Commission and the SJJPA approved a contract with Perkins Eastman for the station and wayfinding project. Within that contract was really multiple components. One was to address the current stations and building a manual that can be deployed today, but understand that that manual also had to incorporate elements for Valley Rail. There are features of Valley Rail stations that we don't have today at our current stations, so it really need to be all inclusive of that. And then going beyond that, it really did need to address, this project needed to address, well, what are we going to put into chapter 15, right? Like we got to update it, we have to complete that part of the criteria, as well as to provide a level of specifications for when the stations are actually gone out to bid. What are the specs that are outlined in the signage section of the bid package to say, well, this is the material that we expect. This is the spec for that product, like, you know, maybe including the vinyl itself. And so both the commission as well as the authority approved the manual, and then this is the last step in the process. So included in your packet was a draft version of chapter 15. It's really exciting read, as you can see, like on the screen. You know, most of the things I bring to you have pretty pictures and cool things to look at. It's pretty boring. And then also a specification sheet. And really it is these two elements that then will get added into the criteria manual. So we'll end up having a new revision of that criteria manual. It will be released to the station design teams. They are even now starting to lay out their station design plans and then submitting those to staff for review to make sure they comply with not only the manual, but these as well. And with that, there's really no fiscal impact for adopting this element. And we recommend that you approve the updates to chapter 15.
It was exciting reading.
Are you thank you.
Any questions? Comments? Any public comment?
Seeing that online.
Any in the room? No. With that, I would entertain a motion on the item.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Thank you. Members Piazza,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hensley,
Aye.
Chair Zuber.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, with that, we're going into closed session, correct?
Yes.
And our dear attorney will get us in there legally.
We're going to adjourn to closed session 12:05. We have one item, pursuant to government code section 54156.8. It is property acquisition, concerns railroad right of way and trackage rights. And I will just tell you that it includes all of the area within the Valley Rail project corridor from the Thomas to Turlock. I will not read all of the mileposts for you. They are explicitly set forth in the closed session item on the agenda. Negotiating parties are for the agency, Stacy Mortensen as executive director, and Union Pacific Railroad Company is the other party. Price and the payment terms are under negotiation. And with that, we are adjourned to closed session.
All right.
Where's it? Oh, right there.
Don't worry about your video.
All right, we have returned from closed session. We had one item, that was item number 8, which was the track rights of UP. And that item was discussion, direction was given by the committee, and there is no other reportable action by this time.
Right. Next item, committee member comments, anybody? Everybody's commented out.
Everybody.
All right, so we will adjourn this meeting, and the next meeting is scheduled for June 6th at 11:30 a.m.
Thank you all. Have a good weekend.
What would you like us to do with the boxes?
I'm just thinking that, figure out, recycle or no, or.
Yeah, I see you sort of do them together on the same day, at least I can